but I thought to start with sharing some of the history of Jews in Iceland and Jewish life in Iceland today. And then I'd love to take some of your questions and share whatever I could about Iceland. Okay, so I'm going to share a few pictures that I prepared. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll see if I'm able to. Yes, it looks like I could. Okay, the history of Jews in Iceland. So first of all, Iceland is a very small country, at least population-wise. It's pretty large geographically. The country only has about 350,000 people living in it, and about 230,000 of them are all in the capital area, which is the Reykjavik area. People always ask how many Jews live in Iceland, so we don't know the answer to that question, but probably 500-600, that's our estimate. We know probably 200-300 Jews on a personal level, so there could very likely be double or triple that number. So Iceland is famous for its natural beauty. Here you can see some pictures. This was just taken from my cell phone, nothing special, but you can see that the nature is absolutely gorgeous. We have waterfalls, we have glaciers, we have lava fields, hot springs, all kinds of very fascinating stuff to look at. Normally, we get many visitors, especially in the summer. Of course, now it's very quiet here in Iceland, but the locals are enjoying it because they get to see all of the nature without all of the hustle bustle of the visitors. But we certainly miss the visitors, and we hope that we meet some of you in the future. So you're all invited to visit us here at the Chabad House and visit Iceland. Okay. So some of the history of Jews in Iceland, we have the word for Jews in Icelandic. That Icelandic is the language. We have the word for Jews is gyðingar, and that is a derivative of the word Guð, which means God. So I always find it interesting that the Jewish people, the root word for Jews is God, so God's people. I always find that interesting. Iceland is famous for its sagas, so the old stories. So they actually have the Gyðinga saga, which is the saga of the Jews. And this is the story, it was written in the 13th century, and it's all about the story of the Maccabees and the story of Hanukkah. So we have the story of Hanukkah included in the Icelandic sagas. So that's pretty fascinating. Just to talk a little bit about the earliest Jews who made it here to Iceland, at least the ones that we know about. So it dates back to approximately 1625. The earliest Jews that we know about traveled here to Iceland, settled here, and they were mostly merchants, not very many of them. The number was quite small, quite low, but there were some Jewish merchants, mostly from Denmark, who traveled to Iceland to do some business. I'm going to fast forward a bunch of years, and we'll go to the early 1900s. In the early 1900s, there was a Jewish guy. This is the black sand beach, by the way. We have mostly black sand in Iceland because of the volcanoes. Okay, so going back to the early 1900s, there was a Jewish guy from Denmark originally. His name was Fritz Nathan, and he settled in Iceland in the early 1900s, and he founded a business and a company named Nathan and Olsen. It's actually still a company that is around today here in Reykjavik, a pretty big company. And it was started by this Jewish Nathan, who came from Denmark in the early 1900s. Something interesting about this building here is that Nathan built this building. It was the first large building in Iceland. So you could see, I think it has 5 stories. This was the first skyscraper of Iceland. And not only that, it was also the first building to be to have electricity. So it was lit up with electric lights. This was the first building to have electricity. After a few years of living in Iceland with his family, he came to the conclusion that it was impossible to conduct and to live a Jewish life in Iceland. So I think it was maybe he moved to Iceland in 1913 and moved back to Denmark a few years later, 1916. So he just understood that there was no Jewish infrastructure, and it was not really possible to live a Jewish life. Fast forwarding again a bunch of years. The reason why we're jumping so much is because there is very little Jewish history in Iceland, and now we know why. Because there was never a organized and a formal Jewish community here. There was certainly never any kind of synagogue or a Jewish school. And we'll talk about some of that in a few moments. But in 1940, the British forces occupied Iceland. And amongst the British forces, there were many Jewish servicemen who obviously celebrated Judaism, as you can see in this photo. If I'm not mistaken, this was around the high holidays, either just before or in between Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And as you can see, this is from 1940. Later on, U.S. forces took over at the base near the Keflavik Airport, which is about 45 minutes from the capital. And by 1945, if I'm not mistaken, there were an estimated 2,000 Jewish soldiers stationed in Keflavik in Iceland. So this picture is from 1941. You could see a whole group of Jewish servicemen posing for this photo. But by 1945, there were an estimated 2,000. Actually, that year, 1944. I'm sorry, 1944. For the high holidays, they had services for 500 people. So of course it was temporary. The synagogue was temporary. They didn't have a synagogue, but they actually had a really big high holiday services with 500 people. Moving right along to the 1980s. People always ask about the Holocaust, if Jewish people escaped Europe to come to Iceland. So actually, Iceland was under the jurisdiction of Denmark, and they only got independence in 1944. So they had the same policies as Denmark. They actually sent some Jews away back to Denmark, or to Denmark, I should say. And there were some Jews who were in Iceland who managed to remain in Iceland by changing their names and things like that. But it was only 1944 when things changed a little bit. Iceland got its independence, and so there are some Jews some Jews living in Iceland today who are from these families who lived in Iceland pre-war, and even from the early 1900s or the late 1800s. So there are many Icelandic Jews in the community. Moving along to 1980, since the 1980s, I should say, there have been, from time to time, there have been Jewish get-togethers, probably we could call them informal gatherings, mostly to celebrate holidays in honor of the Jewish holidays. and it was kind of available to whoever knew about it. So there was a group, and they would get the word out. They had a phone tree, and there were Jewish holidays being celebrated. There was still no synagogue. There was still no Jewish community center, and so this is how it was. There were throughout the year there were a few Jewish events in Iceland. People always ask, were there rabbis? Was there ever a rabbi in Iceland? So during the time that there were Jewish servicemen at the base near Keflavik, so whenever they requested a rabbi, they were able to get a rabbi. So there were rabbis stationed there for periods of time. And the community in Reykjavik, at least the informal community in Reykjavik, from time to time, they were visited by these rabbis who would come to the base to be with the Jewish servicemen there. So from time to time, there were some visiting rabbis in Reykjavik as well. Fast forwarding to 2011, Chabad has a beautiful program where yeshiva students, they travel to places around the world, communities that don't have synagogues or don't have resident rabbis, and they do Pesach Seders, and they do sometimes high holiday services and things like that. So in 2011, Iceland was included in this program, and for the next handful of years, every year, at least once or twice a year, there was either a service, high holiday services, or Pesach Seders, or Hanukkah celebrations and things like that. In 2017, my family and I, my wife, and at that time it was our two daughters, we came to visit Iceland for Hanukkah, to meet some of the Jewish families, some of the Jewish people in Reykjavik. We spent about a week there. And my wife is from Sweden, Gothenburg, Sweden. So we were hearing about the need here in Iceland. So we decided to pay a visit. And then here you could see we came again in 2018. This photo was taken just before the Pesach Seder. And just later that year, a few months later, we moved to Iceland. And here you could see it. This is the International Paper of Iceland. It was in many of the, this news was in many of the media outlets here. I guess it was considered to be a big deal that a Jewish community, an official Jewish community, was starting in a way. It was informal for many years. So this was something big. During that year, the end of 2018, we had the first public menorah lighting in Iceland on the main street of Reykjavik. We got a permit to publicize the beautiful story and miracle of Hanukkah, and that was at the end of 2018. In 2019, again, we did this beautiful menorah lighting, and this time we had the mayor of Reykjavik, who is a very important person in Iceland, even though he's just the mayor. But Reykjavik is the capital city, and it's the most important city, of course, and that's where most of the people are. So the mayor was there, and the mayor announced at the menorah lighting that this is going to happen every single year. So that was a very beautiful thing to hear, especially for all of the local Jews, after so many years of not really having, regular ongoing programming for Jewish holidays and other Jewish activities. Here the mayor of Reykjavik announced that Hanukkah is going to be celebrated every single year. Here you see this is after a meeting in early 2020. As I mentioned before, Iceland was never registered as a community. I'm sorry, Judaism was never registered in Iceland. So the way it is here, like in many other European countries, religions and communities are registered with the government. And this is something symbolic, but there are also certain benefits to the community. And we felt that what was very important to us was to find out from the locals what they were most excited about, what they felt that we should make sure to take care of, make sure to do. And something we heard from everyone was that it's high time that we register Judaism in Iceland. So even though Judaism is the oldest religion, it has never been registered in Iceland. So here you see these are the people who were at the last formal meeting registering Judaism in Iceland. So this was a historic event. Here you can see also in the beginning of 2020, this was the first Holocaust memorial, and this was something very important that we felt should be in Iceland. There was never a Holocaust memorial before, and since then there has been some bills and proclamations from Parliament that are connected to the Holocaust. There's a bill that just came up, a proposal to ban Holocaust denial. So that's something that, of course, the Jewish community welcomes. And also they now officially mark the 27th of January as Holocaust Memorial Day. So these are things that we could clearly see that there was an impact, not just in the Jewish community, but actually in Iceland in general. And here you see, again, some history. The first Torah of Iceland, it was first Torah completed in Iceland, was celebrated just before COVID on February 16th of 2020. And the last project that, not the last project, but the last project that I'm going to show you here is another historic step, something that will make Judaism even more permanent in Iceland. We are now here you can see the part of the Torah celebration, part of the Torah dedication. There was a beautiful march down the main street of Reykjavik, and here you could see it with the chuppah and the Torahs and some of the guests who came from abroad and some of the community who was there. And it was really a sight to see. Certainly the first time Jewish people celebrating together openly as proud Jews on the main streets of Reykjavik. And now we are working on the last project, a project that is going to be permanent. This is going to be the Jewish Community Center and First Synagogue of Iceland. And this is a project that we're working on now. And all of these steps you can see, we're together with the community. Judaism is really flourishing in Iceland, especially in Reykjavik, but the people from all over Iceland are enjoying things that are going on here and the new opportunities that are now available. So this is some of the history. As you can see, it does not compare with Jewish history of other European countries. Not very many people in general living in Iceland, and certainly not very many Jews living in Iceland. But what we find so special is that, the Jews who are here, for them, this means everything. So we really try as much as we could to focus on the individuals. It's not about filling up seats in the synagogue. It's not about having 500 people at the high holidays, even though that's what they had here in Iceland in the past. But it's really about giving everyone the opportunity. It's interestingly enough, it's a very young community, a lot of young families. So we do all kinds of kids activities. Soon we'll be opening a kindergarten, and the plan is to open a Jewish school as well. So these are some of the things that the little bit of history, at least that I know about in Iceland and some of the Jewish life that's going on today. And people are often very fascinated by some of the things that we have in Iceland. So I'll share some of the most popular ones, things that people ask most about, and then I would love to hear your questions and try to answer to the best of my ability. So first of all, now we're in the winter, so we're getting out of the dead of the winter, but in mid-December we have sunset at 3:30 in the afternoon, which is not so early, but if you take into account what time sunrise is, you realize that it's a pretty short day. So sunrise in Iceland in mid-December is at 11:15 in the morning. Wow. So you could always see sunrise no matter what time you wake up. So in December, we have days from 11:15 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon when it already starts getting dark. But don't worry about it. We make up for it in the summer. So in mid-June, we have sunset at the latest sunset on June 21st is at 12:04 a.m. That's why they call it the land of the midnight sun, because you can see the sun setting at midnight. Believe it or not, for 8 weeks of the year, we do not have nightfall. Certainly not halachic nightfall. So you basically have like this twilight time for a couple of hours till about 2:30 in the morning. So basically the sun sets, but it doesn't set far enough below the horizon that could actually get dark. So it only goes down about 2-3 degrees below the horizon, and then it starts coming up again. So that's why we don't have a proper nightfall for about 8 weeks in the summer. And 2:30 in the morning is already sunrise. So what do we do for Shabbat? So we start Shabbat at an early time. And the earliest possible time is when we start Shabbat. It's not that early, don't worry. It's about 9:45 at night. So in mid-June at 9:45 at night, we start Kabbalat Shabbat, followed by Kiddush. And then even when the meal is over at around midnight, it's still very light outside. So it's always quite interesting, especially for visitors. I remember making Kiddush in one of the hotels, in one of the ballrooms that we would rent for the large crowds that we would have. I'm holding the cup of Kiddush wine in my hand, and the sun is shining in my face, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. And that was Friday night. Shabbat ends, usually it ends at nightfall, Saturday night. But for 8 weeks a year, we don't have nightfall. So we need to wait until Sunday morning for Shabbat to end, because when it's dawn on Sunday, we know that Shabbat is certainly over. So about 1:30 in the morning, for about 2 months, we wait till about 1:30 in the morning. That is the time that we could make Havdalah. That is the time that Shabbat finishes. We don't usually stay up till 1:30 in the morning. We enjoy the day, we enjoy the evening, we enjoy the restful Shabbat, and we wake up in the morning on Sunday morning and we have a wonderful Havdalah with the kids on a nice cup of coffee. So that is the story of Shabbat. We also have a very interesting mikvah experience for all of the women in Iceland and all of the visitors who come. We don't yet have a regular mikvah. That is being planned for the future Jewish Center and Synagogue of Iceland. But in the meantime, we have about 800 mikvahs all around the country, because we have all of the hot springs that are kosher mikvahs. So for all of the people who are looking for an interesting mikvah adventure, we have that available here in Iceland. What else do we have interesting in Iceland? Maybe better that I take your questions, so I hear what you want to know about most.
That was really very fascinating. Especially, well, everything was fascinating, but the length of the days in the summer and the brevity of the days in the winter, it's quite mind blowing. I think everyone's going to want to know about your kosher food. Yes. And how do you obtain your kosher food?
That's a great question. So believe it or not, there are many kosher products available in Iceland, and people don't usually realize this. But because there's such a small population, and there's only so much they could grow here in Iceland, there's only so much they could produce. So there's a tremendous amount that's imported from the United States, from the UK, from other European countries. And so automatically you'll find many products, at least dry products, with the kosher symbols on them, the OU, the OK. You'll see many of these, including some of the European versions of these kosher symbols. So we have many kosher products available. We actually have on our website, jewishiceland.com/kosher list. You could find an extensive list, including pictures and a lot of other information of products that are available in Iceland. And people are always surprised when they see, how many products there are available. Of course, we have excellent fish here in Iceland, and the most common and the most popular fish here are kosher ones. So we have a lot of really good salmon and cod. Cod is a very popular fish here, and it's one of the big exports of Iceland, salmon and cod. So of course those are kosher, those are good. For about a year, we were only having fish dinners on Friday night, because in order to import meat, we need to obtain a special license to import meat. So Iceland is not part of the EU. It's an independent country, and not part of the EU. So we need to get a special permit to import meat. So it took about a year, and finally we imported a bunch of meat, and now we have that as well. Most recently, we worked with a brewery to import kosher wine, because to import alcohol here is very difficult. It's controlled by the government, and you need two separate licenses to import wine. So just about a half a year ago, we were able to import a few different bottles of kosher wine, and now they are available in the one alcohol shop, the chain of alcohol shops run by the government. You could find it in all over Iceland. You could find some nice kosher bottles of wine.
Fascinating. Okay, let's throw it open to the audience. If anyone has any questions, you can unmute yourself on the computer. Just press the unmute button. If you're on the phone, you can press star and then 6 to unmute yourself, and then just go ahead and pose your question.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So for Shabbos, is there like an Eruv? Like, how does that work? Like, I mean, is there like a sectioned off area? Like, is it like, I mean?
So there are, if you look at some pictures of the coast of Iceland, especially in Reykjavik, you can see that there are like these, kind of like walls of rock in many of the parts of Reykjavik, I guess a large chunk of the coast, which is in Reykjavik. So we have a partial Eruv already. In the future, we hope to be able to actually build the rest of the Eruv and make it complete. But at this moment, we do not have an Eruv.
For sure. Oh, so you don't have an Eruv for Shabbos? Okay, interesting. All right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you.
We get many visitors, especially in the summer, and we're located at this moment very close to the center of the city, so we're very close to many of the hotels. So it's pretty convenient for people to join the community for Shabbos.
All right, thank you.
What happens? Good afternoon. Thank you so much. What happens in the summer? In other words, you have to keep Shabbos until Sunday morning. You can't do any milah. I mean, or you can't say Baruch Hamavdil either. You can't, right?
So the interesting thing is that we need to daven Ma'ariv. We need to pray the Ma'ariv service actually on Shabbos, because if we wait till after Shabbos, it's already going to be Sunday morning. So when we daven Ma'ariv, we say the Havdalah, we say the Atachay Nantanu, but Shabbos is not yet over. So we could daven Ma'ariv at about 10 o'clock at night, and sometimes we even have a minyan for Ma'ariv, which is the Ma'ariv that you're supposed to say after Shabbos, but we're actually saying it on Shabbos, including the part for Havdalah, but it's still actually in the middle of Shabbos. And then we do the Havdalah with the fire and the spices in the more. Actually, we don't use fire. We actually don't use fire throughout the entire summer because fire is only for Saturday night. So even though we do Ma'ariv in the evening, if you can call it the evening, Shabbos actually continues till Sunday morning, 1:30, about 1:30 in the morning to be exact.
Beautiful. And then, can you take a second one?
Then you could make Havdalah. You could say Baruch Hamavdil, or you could make Havdalah, and then it's back to the weekday.
I think you said you're going to have a nursery school. What do you do for older children for school?
So we are planning, Bezrat Hashem, please God, after the nursery, after the kindergarten, we will start a small school. And we know that it'll grow, but we're going to start one step at a time, first with the kindergarten, and then a small school, and then, please God, it's going to grow.
So right now you don't have kids older than kindergarten, evidently.
Exactly. Right now we have kids activities. Well, not in COVID, it's a little bit different, but we've been doing kids activities every week with about 20, 30 kids. The kindergarten, we already have most of the permits that we need for the kindergarten. That's starting soon. And hopefully in a year or two, we'll be able to start an actual school, starting with the younger grades, and we'll take it from there.
Mr. Shem.
Thank you.
When you said the Achnasa Sefer Torah was the first public display like of Judaism, like outwardly, and people were more like this, well, okay, was there any anti-Semitism at all, or has there been any over the years, especially since the war, World War II?
So we've had, I can speak from my own experience the last few years. We've had only good experiences here in Iceland with, just regular people, neighbors, people who we meet on the street. Also, we've been getting very good reception on a city level and on a government level. So things have been pretty good. We've had basically only good experiences. People don't know so much about Jews here in Iceland. So when people see me, once I was walking down the street, and sometimes people stop me for a selfie because they think it's cool. But somebody once asked me, "Are you the Jewish pastor?" So I said, "Yeah, I guess you can call me that." So people don't necessarily have any previous experience meeting somebody who looks Jewish. Very often, the first question I get is, "Are you from Israel?" And then I say, "No, I'm from New York City." And then they get a little confused. But a lot of what people know here, well, not that they know so much about the Jewish community, but a little bit that they do know, is probably from television or something like that. If they see a Jewish celebration in the middle of Reykjavik, or if they meet Jewish people in Reykjavik, it might be their first impression of real life Jews.
Are the Jews that you're affecting, do they have any what is their background? Do they know Aleph Beis? Do they know anything, or do you have to teach them? And have you had any success? I know you've only been there for years, but have you had any success in making anyone Shomer Shabbos?
I missed the end of the question because it was cutting out a little bit, but we have a very beautiful and diverse Jewish community, people from all different places, all different backgrounds, and all different levels of observance. So we have some Icelandic Jews, we from several generations back. We have expats from all different countries, from European countries, America, South America, Israel, and so we really have all different types. And it really is very beautiful how there's one community center, there's one community, everyone gets together, we celebrate together, and it's really beautiful how we all enjoy and celebrate what we have in common.
So not everybody came from an Orthodox background necessarily.
Again, I'm sorry?
So not everybody, not all the congregants are necessarily Orthodox Jews. Some may have come from a conservative background, some from a Reform background, but you all have been together. You're all one community there.
Correct.
Because is this the only shul in Iceland?
That's correct. So far, we are the only Shomer Shabbos family, but there are many people in the community who are on the way and already keeping large parts of Shabbos.
Wow.
Non-Jewish Icelanders, do they go away after college, or do they go to college there, or do they go away for college, or how many people actually stay in Iceland?
So many, I would say most kids stay within the Nordic countries. So they'll typically, depending on what they're studying, they could study in Sweden, Denmark. They learn some of these languages in school when they're younger. So many of them stick around the Nordic countries. But of course, there will be some who travel to other European countries. Many of them will do like a year abroad in different places. But more often than not, Icelanders stay in Iceland, at least when they're done university. It's kind of like the shtetl. It's a small country. Everybody knows each other. Everybody is a cousin of someone, and they're always coming back to the shtetl. That's where they want to be.
Have you performed any marriages?
Well, we had a few planned, but they were postponed because of COVID.
I wanted to ask you, what about the English language? Is it spoken in Iceland, or it's only Icelandic?
So English is everybody basically speaks English, and they all have a very good English here in Iceland. They learn it in the schools. Also, it's a very small country, so a lot of the TV and stuff that they're watching is mostly in English. So everybody speaks English, especially the young people. But really, everyone speaks English, which makes it a little bit more difficult to learn Icelandic, especially considering the fact that Icelandic is an extremely difficult language. But I already took some lessons. I'm not yet ready to test it out on you guys, but I'm already doing some Icelandic lessons, and hopefully soon I will master it.
What about your wife? You said she's from Sweden. So does the language skill transfer Sweden to Icelandic? Is that comparable? So
about 1,000 years ago, there was pretty much only one language in the Nordic countries. I think it's Old Norse. I guess it was called Norse. So back then, it was pretty much one language. All of the Nordic countries, the languages evolved since then, except pretty much for Iceland. So Iceland is pretty much holding on to the old language from almost 1,000 years ago. Now there is some overlap with Swedish. My wife finds that maybe there's like a 5 or 10% overlap. So I guess it's a little bit of a head start, and she's quite good with languages too. So she's already speaking Icelandic.
Rabbi, I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
Thank you so much for this excellent program. Could you please tell me the high temperatures in the summer and the low temperatures in the winter? That's my first question.
That's a great question. So we'll start with the summer. Well, it's good you asked about the winter and the summer, because they say that in Iceland there are only 2 seasons. It goes straight from the winter to the summer, and then from the summer to the winter. And sometimes the summer feels like the winter, and sometimes the winter feels like the summer. So I think the highest temperature we had in the last few years, well, the average temperature in the summer is probably about 55 degrees Fahrenheit. The thing is that for some reason, there's a really hot sun in Iceland. I've heard different explanations of the reason for that, but there is a pretty, the sun feels much hotter here. And if you're in the sun, then sometimes it could feel like 75 degrees, even though it's 55. So that's always very interesting. But if you're in the shade, then, that's pretty much what it is. It's an average of 55. In the winter, we have an average of probably 30 degrees by day, maybe 25 degrees by night. That's probably the average. And the reason for that is because we have the Gulf Stream, which causes the temperature here to be much higher than it normally would be at this latitude. So if you look at other countries of the same latitude, you'll see that it's really a drastic difference in temperatures. But we have it here in Iceland. It's also it also affects England and probably some other countries as well. But that's why it's actually not so. It doesn't get too cold here, and yeah, it really is. The winters could be fairly mild. We get very little snow, believe it or not, even though they call it Iceland. You don't really see much ice around, except if you go to the glaciers and the mountains. There you see much more snow and ice. But the temperature is pretty mild. The difficulties with the weather is mostly when we have windstorms. So we could get really powerful winds, almost like hurricane powered winds, and it could be quite a big deal. They'll close many roads because sometimes buses or cars could be knocked off the road. They'll close the airports. I think last year, now the airport, they barely have any flights, but I think last year, last winter was, I don't remember, there were not too many flights last year either, but I guess it was 2019. I think there were eight occasions that the airport was closed for like a half a day or a full day. The international airport was closed. So the wind could get pretty brutal. On my first flight over to Iceland, I was watching the screen and the advertisements that they have on the airplane, and it said like this. They had all of these fun facts about Iceland, and it said the most interesting thing about Iceland is not that it's the third windiest country in the world. The most interesting thing about Iceland is that nobody lives in the first two.
My second question is, what sort of occupations bring Jewish people to Iceland? What are some of the things that they do?
All different. So the main, the biggest industries here are, the fish industry. Tourism is pretty big, or I should say was pretty big, hopefully will be pretty big. And also they process aluminum here. because energy is so cheap, they use a lot of the natural energy. So they process aluminum, which requires a tremendous amount of energy. I think I don't know so much about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but apparently that uses a lot of energy and creates a lot of heat. So they do some of that in Iceland too. But really, in the Jewish community, we have people doing all sorts of things. Some people came here for work. Some people came here for family. Some people came here just because they were looking for a nice, safe place to live. Iceland has made it, I think, for 11 years straight. Iceland has been the #1 safest country in the world.
I have a question. Is it just you and your wife there? And if it is, and you don't have additional staff, how do you reach out to everyone? And are you like teaching basics like olive base? And are you and your wife lonely?
Great question. So first of all, we have many volunteers, wonderful volunteers in the community. Like I mentioned before, things have been going on here since the 1980s regularly. So people are used to participating and making things happen. Everyone knows that things don't happen by themselves. So people are very happy to participate and help make things happen. Of course, we hire the staff that we need, so it's according to the need. In the summer, when there are many visitors and much more going on, we hire more people. During the quieter times, we'll hire less people. Now we have Icelandic teacher who we hire every day. So that's it's really according to what's going on. That's how much we hire and get volunteers. I was just talking to my friend in the United States, and he says, "Oh, now we also feel like we're in Iceland." So now it does. In a way, it feels lonely. In a way, it feels like everyone feels like they're living in Iceland. But actually, of course, we miss family and friends back in New York and back in Sweden. But we've made wonderful friends here in the community. And we really love it here. It's a wonderful place, wonderful people. And we try to go to New York once a year. And we try to go to Sweden also once a year to my wife's family. Now we've been in Iceland since November of 2020. What am I saying? Since November of 2019, right? Since November of 2019, we've been in Iceland. So, but it's wonderful here. I think that we're very lucky to be in Iceland during COVID because, like I said, for the first half a year, life was very normal. And even since then, everything is open. It's just that everything is limited to smaller numbers, but everything is open and life is fairly normal. So we consider ourselves to be very lucky.
I have a couple questions. One is about supervision of kosheress of the salmon places, the other fish that you mentioned. And secondly, when you commit to a mission there, is it open-ended or do you have to say, I will stay here 10 years? I mean, as your family grows and they only have exposure to so few other Jews with a wide range of Judaism, it's a hard thing, I'm sure.
So I've been to some factories, to some fish factories, and since we moved here, there are some new factories that are getting kosher certification. But actually, before we came here, there were some rabbis coming here for from time to time to visit some factories. So there were always some, and now there's some more. We came to Iceland on a one-way ticket, and we plan to be here as long as there is a Jewish community and until Mashiach comes. So that is our plan, and this is what we love doing. This is what we know is important in general, important for us to do, and we see every day the impact that the Chabad house and Jewish activities have on the people here. So that's what inspires us. That's what keeps us going, and it's really so beautiful. We try to give our kids as much exposure to the larger Jewish community as much as we could. So we take them to New York. When we do, we'll stay for a few weeks, and they'll join the local kindergarten. Or when we go to Sweden, we spend time with the community there. Something interesting that there's a French doctor living here for about 20 years. After about 6 months of us being here, he tells me, back in France, I would go to if I was going to the synagogue, I would see, I would know 20, 30 Jewish families. But actually in Iceland, because of, besides for the community here, we have so many visitors, I meet more Jews here in Iceland than I would back in Paris. So I think our kids get to see a lot of different people from a lot of different places, including a lot of kids. Believe it or not, there are it's the very adventurous families that come here with kids, and it's actually quite fun. But it's usually for the most part, adults are coming to tour Iceland. But when you have so many visitors, there are going to be a bunch with kids as well.
Hi, I'm Albert. Thank you so much for this program. It's really interesting. Actually, my family and we did come to Iceland with kids.
Okay.
But
great.
you were not there yet, unfortunately. I think it would have
What year was that?
I think 2017 or so, maybe even 16, 17, something like that.
Okay.
I think that you might have already. We looked up. I think you might have been in and out before it was formally established.
Our first visit was in December of 2017. That was our first visit.
Around that time. But anyway, that's it's great to hear what you're doing, and I'm sure
You're welcome to come visit again.
I might try to do that now. I have a question halakhically also, since we're talking about Shabbos. Pesach is also, if it's late in the year, right, it might also be a little bit a challenge because, right, all the finishing before midnight and then cooking for the next day and all those things, right? There's quite a lot of intricacies. How do you deal with that challenge?
So Pesach could be challenging, especially some years. So it could be as nightfall could be as late as I think 9:30, if I'm not mistaken, 9:15 or 9:30, and it could be as early as I think 8:15 or 8:30. So depending on the year. So of course, when it's later, it's more difficult to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to have the matzah and to do all the mitzvahs after nightfall, which is the correct time. But we try to be creative and to do it in such a way that everyone actually does have the opportunity.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rabbi Feldman, I want to thank you so very much. It's been absolutely riveting, very fascinating to learn about the Jewish community of Iceland. I want to wish you a lot of success, much hatzlacha in all of your holy work, and what you mentioned before about being there till Mashiach comes. My wish is that Mashiach will come very soon, and so we can all meet in Israel, God willing.
Amen.
So, thank you so much, and wishing you Godspeed and success.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet all of you, and you are all invited to Iceland as soon as COVID is behind us. May that be very soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.